It was real bad, probably when she was like, a year and a half, 2 years old. But now she'll go, she likes to feed, refill his bowl, but she won't touch it now, thankfully.
Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for being here with us. A couple of comments of instruction. I anticipate help me here. I will call the meeting to order. Thank you for joining our March 10th meeting. I'd like to hear us move by pretty quickly here. Hopefully, we'll get out of here before the count for the ring. Again, thank you for being here. Council, is there any adjustments to tonight's agenda?
Only thing, we need to remove whole closed session for today. Depending on feedback that our attorney gets, we may have to include that Thursday, but at this point, we don't have anything to report. It would be in reference to, previous attorney we talked to last year to see if there's an update.
If not, then I'll ask council to approve tonight's agenda with the removal of item 6. Is there a motion? Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll run down to our agenda. First item is comments from the council and myself. I'll start with Mr. Kirazinski.
Nice to see the 5K yesterday, great turnout, the spring 5K that Troutman Parks and Rec held. Also the trees finally budding and getting some green back on them. And also, I'd like to discuss today something I shared with everybody about health insurance for the council board. If we could have some time to discuss that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
The information that I shared sent individually to everybody about health insurance for the council and board.
We'll discuss it after we do our round.
Yep.
Mr. Hinkle?
One thing really, I drove by, I wasn't at the spring, but I drove by a couple times, and as Councilman Jones said, it was well attended, appeared, and things appeared to be organized, and everybody having a good time, and glad for that. Especially want to thank staff, our Public Works Department, for their handling of the massive, well, I say massive, accumulating massive leak up here at the corner of Rumpel and North Main, or South Main, and I'm sorry it took several days, but I'm glad they got it cut off, capped, and everything is squared away now. Unfortunately, with some of our pipe going back to 1926, I believe it is, this may not be the end of it, but nonetheless, I appreciate everybody's dedication and sticking with that, and perhaps working even into the evening and nights on some occasions, to try and get that capped off and taken care of.
Ms. Harris?
Happy Women's History Month. That's all I have to say.
I'll just echo the council's previous comments. I do have one question, just a general inquiry, something I saw today. Is I noticed a semi-tractor trailer coming down Main that was clearly labeled as a student driver. And I was wondering, is that associated with the CATS facility, or are we aware of that?
That particular one I can't answer. However, yes, CATS does, in concert with Mitchell College, have a tractor and trailer driving course. Typically, I know they're in class because they'll have 2 or 3 trailers parked at the CATS facility for those student drivers. And I honestly have not saw those recently, but it very well could have been.
That was the first time I'd seen one as well, so yeah, I was just genuinely curious. Thank you, that's all.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great, thank you. I'll just, also reflect on the comments that staff has made. Spring was good yesterday. The, young man who, I think had a, medical emergency last year was here, family, and they were able to, finish the race. Thought it was, well done. Saw Mr. Jarozinski in the race. Probably didn't see me, he was running so fast, but, you know, do that for another day. But it turned out to be a good day. Weather was nice and, as was stated, very well done by the staff and, team out there. I think they had a few extra helpers, young people helping out, so it was a good day. Again, glad to see, so many folks coming out to, get their exercise that day. I wasn't, partly because of the, statement that Mr. Jarozinski said. I had a major headache yesterday as a result of all the pollen and, allergies, so, but again, it was a good day, so, again, I enjoyed it.
I just want to say, if I may, Mr. Mayor, a few more years, you and I'll be in the same weight class and running. So I'm waiting for you, sir, so I can get out and run. And, no, I'll at least have one person maybe behind me, hopefully. I won't be great.
I'm gonna leave that for another conversation. Yeah, again, as Mr. Hinkle said, appreciate Public Works, working on that, water break. Again, I know it took a lot to, try to manage through the traffic, and, I know our folks don't always, want to slow down. And so again, it can be a little bit, of a caution for them to be out there, but they got it done, and we appreciate that. And, to Ms. Harris' point, it is Women's History Month, and, I'd like to, celebrate all the great work that the women do, both for our families, our community, and our homes. And so again, appreciate, you mentioning that. I don't have anything else at this time. I'll go to staff first, and then we'll come back to the question that Mr. Jarozinski had on, health insurance. Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. I apologize for not being here yesterday to the event. I will certainly add, as I have said before publicly, our Parks and Rec department continues to increase, but Emily's recipe book, as I call it, is definitely in place. As long as people follow that, then each event should be a success. But it's good to see so many people come out. I honestly cannot remember off the top of my head if that is the 11th or 13th Sprint into Spring event, and they continue to grow. We were somewhere over 300 people, I think, yesterday registered. Typically, the mayor finishes first, just so you know, Nick. But I hate he had the allergy problem yesterday.
I still finished first. First one at the finish line.
And I'm usually last on the golf cart, but I did have Reed one year ask me how his dad, our police chief, could finish 10 minutes ahead of me, but not get a medal, and I did. And it goes back to what Paul's saying, the weight class or age class that allowed me to do that one time. But nobody else was in my class. That's the reason I got it. But I do appreciate all the staff, and it also goes to transition as we appropriately fund departments. Used to events like that, had a lot more volunteers to make it a success. Other departments within the town had to assist, and we still have assistance from other departments, but not near the quantity that at one time required. We appreciate our partnership. DOT showed up in the middle of the repair for the water leak, and sometimes the communications in the bigger departments don't get to the other side, but after he initially inquired what was going on, then he gave us a pass to continue what we're doing. I also met with DOT by Zoom meeting this morning. We was hoping to begin the Houston Road Flower House Loop realignment in April. Due to the utilities taking so long getting their equipment moved, their lines moved, it does not look like we will be able to begin the bidding process in April. It may have to be postponed as much as 2 months, but that is still being worked on, just so everybody knows. That's all comments. Oh, the last comment is several of you knew that Lou, our HR director, was hoping to return to federal employment. In the last 3 weeks, that notice did come as to when his start date was. We have selected a young man to be his replacement. Hopefully, he will be able to make Thursday night's meeting to be introduced to you all. I was already speaking with Council Lady Harris, that I thought we had a good choice out of the applicant pool. I will say the final 3, it was very hard to choose from. On one hand, on the other hand, Terrence clearly I think will be an asset to the town right off the bat, but we did want there to be some overlap of getting an HR person to work with Lou to find out where he was at. Of course, the League of Municipalities has noticed everyone since our last meeting that they would no longer be providing health care coverage for all the municipalities they have been representing, and that is one of the big things that Lou has been working on to try to get us suitable plans to move forward. And that's all the information I have at this time.
It is the 13th, or was the 13th, spring. So great work, and I failed to mention that there were a lot of sponsors out there, and again, appreciate all the organizations that kind of pitched in and helped and volunteered and participated. So it was a good showing. So I would only add that there's probably a couple things that probably needs to be added to Emily's, what did you call it?
Recipe book. Right.
Yeah, some folks don't always feel all that great once they ran that time, so she has a way of somehow helping them out, so let me put it like that. But always something new to add, so, but again, it was a good day. So back to Mr. Jaroszewski's question, do you want to elaborate a little bit on what you sent?
Yeah, so I had shared some findings from North Carolina Health Report of a study done on town councils where from the council level to each town all the way up through the state level, and the accessibility for elected officials of the 62 counties that they surveyed in this article, 45 of them gave part-time commissioners healthcare benefits while in office. Out of those 45, a majority offer healthcare coverage without any contribution from the commissioners. Only 12 counties require city commissioners to contribute to the cost of their individual health plan premiums. Some of them at $30 a month was the highest charges. And just for those that don't know, commissioner and councilman unilaterally use these definitions for our positions. I think as the town is in a position of searching for new health care, we should consider that potentially for a board as well, as it is offered in many other counties in the state.
That's why that's something that, I guess, in the league plan was offered, or did we, in that prior plan, decide who was going to actually be part of that plan?
Previous town councils, and it's been more than 8 years. I honestly can't off the top of my head go back. Um, it's part of a compensation package, I guess is the way some elected bodies look at it, whether it be municipality or county. And it's at least 10 years previous to my knowledge when it was last discussed at a compensation package as to whether our elected officials should be included in the insurance plan. One discussion at one time was some of these groups are self-insured, others are not. They pay for a plan, and that was some discussion once it was previously discussed at some point in time. I honestly, as staff, we have no opinion. It's just a directive from you all. There are mandates with our insurance plans to where our employees have to do certain things or pay out of pocket themselves if they don't fit into a certain grouping, and that's a very minimal requirement that there be a review, and I forget what they call it. Chief, you may remember, but you've got to at least have an annual physical. That be turned into the insurance carrier that you at least participated in an annual physical, and they do a review of your health plan. It's not shared information into a large detail, but certain things do trigger certain responses within the insurance company that you have to follow a suggested plan to stay fully covered. That's the only thing that I can say with our current insurance plan with the league that may or may not cause grief with certain counsel, and it does not matter to us one way or the other, but just throwing that information out there.
I know we were on a short time frame with the league. What's our, I guess, conversation with whatever that new policy might look like?
Currently, we are reviewing a lot of different options. Some insurance agents representing a multitude of insurance companies to try to develop a plan that best suits ours. Just as a reminder for all, used to be the town of Troutman was compared to towns its size, which typically were an hour to 3.5 hours away. And quite frankly, that's not the same employee pool that we were recruiting with. I think one of the closest was Taylorsville. Beyond that, like, and I just lost, Valdez was the other one. Well, we're not competing with either of those towns for most of our jobs. So one of the things, with council's permission, that we started doing was to make sure we had a good health care option as far as insurance goes. And we pay not only the health insurance for the employee, but also dental care and eye care. The town pays for those. The employee is then allowed to pay for dependent coverage, where the town pays 30% of the cost of that. Going forward, I do think the dependent coverage part may be something that we will have to look at and discuss as to whether to continue that same formula or reduce it possibly. The reason the league got out of the healthcare business was there were so many claims by the people that they covered this past year. I was told in the neighborhood of 200% higher in the first quarter than they anticipated. That being the case, our pool of coverage seems to be more healthier than most, so we're hoping our option going forward will not be as significant as some towns may face. But until we have the numbers and or the options, I really can't talk to any factual basis. But we are in the process of gathering a multitude of different options and offers.
What I would offer, I guess, to your point, or question, is that usually there's some kind of survey that a new insurance company will do, and then bring back what those amounts are, what that coverage looks like, and that sort of, then that can be brought back to council for consideration at that point. But without knowing some of the details of what the plan is, what the cost is, what that would mean for the town, I think probably a little bit premature, but it makes sense to be.
That's why I bring it up, is so that it can be in those discussions and brought back to us, if it be in the next week or month or 2 months, or all the way to the deadline. I mean, who knows, right? But be a little proactive on it is kind of where I'm saying.
I don't, as the mayor said, we just received the news and we have been aggressively looking at options. I would like to say, hopefully, we'll have something by the 1st of April. I honestly do not know if we're gonna have a lot of options to discuss before we get into our budget workshops in April to know. By mid-May, we will have to know something, because we will have to have contracts in place so that our coverage can begin July 1st with whoever that option is. So on one hand, I wish I could tell you we'd have it next week, but we have made everybody know we have to have it by the end of April, worst case scenario.
Just, and I think you alluded to a while ago that this would not be a first if the council elects to go this route after information is received and decisions made. This was done, I can't remember, for several years. It wasn't a long period of time. And I'm trying to remember, I think it was in the late 1980s, the council was covered by insurance, no cost to the council for several years. And then I think the feeling was, of course, you had some elections, our election, and the feeling was that, that's was not something that they wanted to continue doing. So it was for several years, but again, one way we'll look back to that, if one way the power was in office and so forth, to give you an idea. But I think it was late 80s, early 90s, but if you want to look at that and see what we did then, just for reference.
Part of the discussion back then, and I remember when it changed to not covering, was that most of the people that served on the council had full-time jobs, and it provided them health care coverage. And that was one of the reasons why they opted out of it, was they had health care options. And I will also add to what Councilman Jarosinski said, just because it's an option does not mean that everybody has to do it. If somebody has coverage, okay, and even with our employees, we do not cover all of our employees in health insurance because some have it elsewhere, either military retirement or retirement from another job, and they choose to keep that coverage for themselves and or their family. So going forward, there's certainly things that we can discuss, and people can opt in or out, and if they opt out, what we do, if there's another form of compensation back, which is what we do with our employees currently, is they get some pittance of, instead of us paying a premium, we give them something in return. But that's also there.
Some of that is covered and shared in that article, as well as what some surrounding councils do, where they don't pick up the health insurance, and how the compensation is either back or just not there at all. So it is definitely health insurance.
Right. You good?
Good, thanks. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the introduction of applicant for the vacant position of planning board, inside alternate. Mr. Wyatt.
Jacqueline is here this evening. If you would come over, kind of here between us. Give everybody an introduction about yourself, why you want to serve, and then they may have questions of you afterwards.
Absolutely. So Jackie Crouch, I have actually been in North Carolina for only about 2.5 years, so not long. Come from, gosh, many years in Michigan, Colorado. So I've seen different areas of the country and been a part of different avenues there. My background personally is a nurse, a registered nurse. I work from home. I have 2 kids. My husband actually was on the building side. So we owned a building company, residential building, back in Michigan. So I've been in a lot of that piece as well, in development and gosh, worked with many of the local, utilities, things like that within Michigan as well. So I just want to be a part of it. Like I said, I'm new to North Carolina and new to Troutman, and just want to be a part of the community and watch it grow.
Why did you choose Troutman?
Well, we actually began in Mooresville and came up to Troutman, and honestly, we came across a house that worked for us in Troutman, but we had traveled past it and stuff, and I like the small towns. You can really build a community base within the small towns, and I like that. Be a lot of like community, family oriented. I like that. I just want to be a part of it, yeah.
Any other questions?
And for Atrium, what's your position with Atrium?
What's that?
I think I saw on your application you were with Atrium.
I was with Atrium, and I was driving down to Charlotte every day. I was used to working at home, and now I found a position that I'm able to work at home as a case manager. And so yes, I'm just right around the corner, not far, so yes.
I was looking at your information, I didn't see, where you had said that you had been on boards before, where you were from.
I have not been, no.
You just
So
went
this would
there.
be new to me, but
Mhm.
as an alternate, I said, well, able to put my foot in the door and see what happens.
Mhm.
Yeah, be a part of things.
Questions?
Okay.
Did they talk about pay? Thank you for volunteering, and appreciate you putting your name in the hat, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
We pay in crypto, that way you don't see the money.
Yeah, perfect.
After you all have met Mrs. Crouch, I would just like to reiterate a couple things. The board does have a vacancy. This would be an alternate position. Tanya Bartlett previously held the alternate position, but due to a resignation from the board, she then became an active member on the board. Not meaning she was not active in the meetings, it just became a voting position on the board. And also a reminder to the public that may watch now or is watching now or watch later, the Planning and Zoning Board, by its design, is an advisory board. We all get scrutinized by the public at times as to what the planning board makes a decision, and then sometimes the council goes opposite. Typically for large development projects, it's a 3-step process minimum. Andrew's here to correct me if I misspeak on this topic, but depending on the size, they may be required to have a community meeting. At that meeting, the developer proposes what they would like to do or what they're thinking about doing. In some instances, not all, and actually it's very few, they actually get very critiqued and receive a lot of criticism for a specific project. That allows the developer to go back to planning and zoning staff afterwards and say, wow, I didn't see that coming. We need to go back and change some things in our plan. We heard the people, we need to work on something. That's when they start making concessions and or agreements that's not necessarily required to us, but they're trying to appease certain people within a community and to be good neighbors and or good partners, if you will. So that allows the first set of changes. Then they go before the Planning and Zoning Board to have somewhat of an official meeting. There's a process there that should be adhered to for pros and cons of a particular project. Regardless of how the Planning and Zoning Board votes, more times than not, that developer leaves that meeting again, hearing for the second time from first time from a board, but second time from folks within our town of pros and cons of a project. They will go back and then make adjustments again, trying to get favor with you all that shows that they have been trying to adhere to what the community says and/or to what the planning and zoning board has said. So just for the record, that's why sometimes there is a different opinion from you all than planning and zoning, is that project continues to change to be more of a good project. Also, planning and zoning board in its advisory role can vote yes or no for a project without any real legal precedence. By the time it gets to you all, that's where planning and zoning department, led by Andrew, has to advise whether they are in support or not in support of a project. Typically, if they say they are in support, it simply means it's adhering to all the things legally that we have no reason to deny a project. I hope that helps clarify the need for the planning and zoning board, first of all, but also why sometimes there's a separate vote than what the other board said.
Thank you. Again, thank you, Ms. Crouch. Appreciate it. Next item on the agenda is an overview of the council meeting for Thursday. Mr. Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Roman numeral 6 is the consent agenda items. A, B, C, D are typical things that are month-to-month approval. E is consider annexation request, directing the clerk to investigate a petition for annexation. There are numerous property owners there. Some have reached out to me directly. Simply recommend that our clerk be allowed to continue that under the guise of that is her duties if you all are so inclined. Roman numeral 7, recognition presentations. It's no secret, as I said earlier, that Lou was leaving. One of our questions we asked the applicants, you come to work on a Monday, you have a grievance of employees, you've been notified that there will be no health insurance coverage, you are interviewing for department head positions, you are also placing job listings for other positions, and you also have to get the monthly employee luncheon handled. That's all on a Monday morning when you come in. Now what are you gonna do? And that's one of the reasons why we are recognizing Lou, is that was not just a brain teaser question for the interview process, but actually what he had to deal with one Monday morning last month. Also, up to Mayor Pro Tem Oxshire, we have tabled the request from Barium Seasons HOA for 4 stop signs, and a conversation with the Mayor Pro Tem. I believe we're going to continue this one more month. Is that not correct?
Yes.
So actually 7B can come off unless you all, because it was tabled, and correct me if I'm wrong, it did not say to this month, it just said tabled, correct?
It did to this one.
Okay, well, we'll have to have it on there to continue another month.
I mean, we got the letter from the HOA president.
Yes, sir, there has been some discussion within the community that the original 4 locations may not be the best for the signage, and instead of us proceeding without comment from them collectively, they're gonna have another board meeting so that everybody can participate in that meeting to determine where the signs are best for the community as a whole. And there's been several citizens who were not at the first meeting when this was originally approved that feel like this will allow their voices to be heard.
So should we just table it and bring it back up?
You all can do so now if you like. Go ahead and table it, and then we'll bring it up next month.
Can I get a motion to table that item for Thursday?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second? Motion is made to table item 7B. Any other question or comment? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Hearing none, motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Roman numeral 8, new business, consider annexation request, applicant Sterling Properties, Mooresville LLC, 49.62 acres on Autumn Leaf Road. Andrew, is there comments to this?
Yeah, we talked about this briefly last month, with the resolution. This is the property between Autumn Leaf Road and Quail Haven subdivision, about 50 acres. There is no rezoning component to this, so the density allowed on the property will not change with this annexation. It'll just allow the property, if developed, to have town services.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is one we had annexed previously to where they may do their own sewer systems, but now they will actually be a part of our sewer system.
They had a request in front of our Board of Adjustment for a variance to allow them to develop this subdivision on septic. It was against our ordinance. Basically, it was too close to a sewer line to allow that to happen. They were denied that by the Board of Adjustment, so without sewer access, they would not be able to develop the property.
Do you know how the proximity to the existing sewer line?
It's below the hill.
Yeah,
Right there.
basically, that pump
Okay.
station for Quail Haven is within a couple hundred feet of the property.
That is also just for reference, in case somebody heard us mention Quail Haven and they get all kind of questions. That's one that has already been identified a couple years that the town intends on improving. There has been complaints from several citizens in the Quail Haven subdivision of odors, but us changing the pump station and using more of a gravity flow system, it actually enhances the area, and this project will not change that at all. But I want to clarify, our enhancements to the system is whether or not this project happens or not. Them being able to access it is irrelevant to the enhancements we had already been trying to work on. Most of those that would be affected by a couple feet of the existing right-of-way for the town to work have absolutely said, please make the improvements. There has been a couple that has always been very vocal and outspoken on projects that's just refused to acknowledge. So we have our town attorney on doing condemnation for the project because they've refused to have dialogue. But again, that has nothing to do with this.
Yeah, so that I'm clear, this is an annexation, not a rezoning.
That's right. There will not be a rezoning component to this. If developed, it will develop as it's currently zoned.
Question. If you're a sewer line, why would they want to go with the septic system in the first place? You may have said something I didn't hear, but.
I can answer that. The initial part, they was going to stay in the county and then do their own well and septic system. But because they're in our ETJ, you're still allowed to do that. But the Board of Adjustment said no. When you look at the overall health plans of communities, if a sewer system is available, then they're suggested by DEQ that they be a part of that system. But the Board of Adjustments has clearly said no. They didn't want that many septic tanks being near a creek, because there is a creek that's near there.
Water, were they still gonna get town water? Or was it-
Yes, they were not originally, but now they were.
They both want wells and septic tanks, initially is what they wanted to do.
Correct.
That would have, that would have been a problem.
And the Board of Adjustments correctly said, no, we're not doing that.
So it's currently in the county. What is the current county zone?
It's in our ETJ. So it's currently zoned town of Troutman suburban residential, which is minimum half-acre lot sizes, single-family home zoning.
Thank you.
And again, we stress that it's not changing the base zoning. They're just simply asking to be annexed in so that they can get the other services available. Item number 8B, annexation request of John Lambert. This is .3902 acres located at 142 Scotch Irish Lane. The applicant is requesting town water, and per our town policy, the applicant must apply for annexation first. This property is in our ETJ, therefore a zoning change is not required. And we recommending approval. Andrew's here if you have any specific questions of that.
Well, is there a water line close by, or is this gentleman gonna have to do some?
There is water close by, yes.
Okay. You being ETJ, I was a little curious about that.
Well, on one hand, as you say, it's kind of common sense. On the other hand, it's not. For example, we've got property up here off Old Mountain Road. You would think there's water and sewer lines all through there. There is not. But now the parcels there are either in our town limits with no water and sewer or close by. They had the opportunity, or let me rephrase that. Landowners at one time had the opportunity of opting in when those lines went through that area. They chose not to, and now the property owners are living with the choices that whoever it was then made. It was not going to cost them money back then. One property in particular, it's close to $150,000 to get water and sewer to their property, even though they're in the town limits.
We had another gentleman that we recently ran upon to, so we had to come inside. So that was another situation where they could have at one time and chose not to.
Exactly. Any other questions on that one? 8C, consider appointment of Jacqueline that you all met to the Planning and Zoning Board. If you all have any questions between now and Thursday's meeting, feel free to let the clerk know and we will forward those to have any additional questions answered. And that will be our meeting.
Any other comments for the good of the order?
Something that, the discussion with Sterling Properties, if they had more land space, let's say they're inside or they're ETJ, could they still build the septic tanks in water, or do they need to come in and use our, especially if they're inside?
The way the rule works is if they are inside our town limits, we are supposed to provide water and sewer. However, it is the landowner's request to get those, not request, it's their obligation to get the water and sewer to their property. Meaning, if the closest place we have it's a half-mile away, they've got to pay for that. But once they do, then we provide the water and sewer. There are some instances to where that property owner says, look, I want water and sewer, but it's not worth that much money to me to get it. Will you all allow me to apply for a variance? That goes before the Board of Adjustments so that they can either make that option or not. In some instances, they would actually come before you all to ask to be out of that current policy. It's certainly up to you all to do. As we have discussed before, in most instances, unless it causes ill will, we follow the policy that we changed a few years ago. Most municipalities have a similar policy that says we simply do not provide water and sewer services to anyone that's not in our town limits. There certainly can be exceptions, but as a general rule, we don't. If they are in our ETJ, the same rules apply. If they are not in our ETJ, and we have one recently that made a request because the county quit some years ago. I couldn't tell you honestly if that's been 8 years or a decade. They quit as our core town limits grew. Used to be if it was contiguous growth, then the county automatically changed the ETJ to reflect our contiguous town limits growing out. Spot annexations did not count. But for whatever reason, the county changed their policy, and not just Iredell County, but several other counties also just quit doing it that way. There has been so much grief and pushback from people who live in the ETJ complaining that they do not have a voice when decisions are made that affected them. On one hand, I agree with them. They're 100% correct in what they're theorizing. On the other hand, the realities are, each one of our boards, whether it be Board of Adjustments or Planning and Zoning, does have ETJ members on there. The problem we're running into is we have made recommendations to Iredell County Commissioners on 3 separate occasions that I'm aware of, and they opted to go a different route, even though we had been going through the process to identify ETJ people to serve on either one of these boards. So the last time they done it, about 1.5 years ago, I opted as a town manager to say, hey, we're not wasting town council's time or the staff's time to go through the process of identifying an ETJ person for you all to then say, it's our decision, we don't care what your recommendation is. So we put all of that back on them. You all find ETJ people, hoping that they would quit saying and siding with people who said they don't have representation. They have reached out at least twice in the last 3 months, asking if we had applications, and I've responded, we're not doing it. Your commissioner said it was you all's decision, you all handle it. So I know at least one citizen who does not live in our town or ETJ that has been asked by 2 different commissioners who they should appoint to our board. So they're not even following a process. So it's kind of frustrating because the citizens are saying they don't have representation when in reality they do. But at least 3 occasions, the county commissioners have ignored the recommendations of this board, and now they're going outside their own policy of how they should identify people to be on these boards. That's the big hurdle. The second hurdle is if the ETJ is shrinking, the pool of people that can serve is getting less and less and less because they have not continued to extend those contiguous limits. So it's a very big public argument of what ETJ is, what it's not, and at least for the last 4 years, there has been some legislation that shows up in Raleigh to do away with ETJ altogether. So I'm certainly not going to ignite a fire by saying it should or it shouldn't be. The statutes clearly state they should be, but several lawmakers have not, and commissioners have not wanted to do what their positions require them and state the obvious and appoint people to those boards to make decisions. And that's, to me, is what it comes back to. The purpose of the ETJ is so that there's a transition from rural to town living, so that the town can basically watch its front porch or its back door, ever how you want to say it, by having control in the ETJ so that it does blend in harmony with what that town is doing. Whether you and I want to do things the way LA does it or Sanford does it is irrelevant. It's all about the town of Troutman for us and my role in you all's, but that's getting lost in the state of North Carolina. And with our area being large growth area, then of course, most of those people complaining are coming into our town limits for our resources, using our town park, for example, for free because it's a public park. But yet their county taxes are not providing them the amenities that they're complaining on social media that we should provide to them when they're not paying us anything.
Get back, I was thinking that state law, at least this is my understanding in the past, things changed, that it was automatic, contiguous, not spot, but contiguous. As that expanded out, then automatically, in our case, 1 mile or 2 miles, without county commissioners having to say in what way they was state law, it would automatically expand out. And there was no having to be reviewed by county commissioners. It was part of state law for that expansion.
Yes, sir. At one time, it was automatic. But with the great misuse of annexation by Fayetteville, North Carolina, and then that changing the subsequent laws on annexation, shortly after that, the laws on the ETJ expanding also got changed. I'm not saying that was Fayetteville's fault, but up until that point, towns could involuntary annex, period. But because they were doing it at such swift movements, just to increase their tax base without offering services, it created strife for the whole state, and the state of North Carolina done away with involuntary annexations. The only way we can go after them now is condemnation for the greater good of whatever that may be. But it was within 2 or 3 years of once involuntary annexation stopped, there was also laws that went into effect that stopped the automatic continuation of the ETJ.
So it has to be approved by commissioners for any expansion, whatever.
Yes, sir. And Iredell County Commissioners has refused to do it.
Yeah, I understand, sir. Okay, one other thing, if I may get back to, the possible allowance of people moving into our area, especially inside town limits. And I realize that it's probably, unlikely to happen, but if someone comes in and wants to dig a well, put in a septic tank inside our town limits, if the land space allows for it, they can do that. And, okay, that was my understanding, that was what I was asking, because I was thinking that if they came inside town limits, you know, Joe Smith comes in, you know, has an acre lot, he wants to build a house, he wants to put his own well, dig his own well, you know, septic, he could do it.
No, sir.
But he would have to use our, if they're reasonably close, he has to use our utilities.
If they are in our town limits, they have to use currently, they have to use our water and our septic system, or ask for a variance or a change for whatever hardship it may be causing.
Okay. Gotcha.
And we've had a number of those requests over the last several years where we said, now you have to come into the town, because you've got access to water. So
And I know there's been some people already, they wanted to disconnect and dig their own well, so to speak, and, you know, dig their own well, and of course we told them there's no way.
The most common way since I have been the town manager that we have dealt with that is people wanting to dig wells to do their own irrigation. And even in those scenarios, we have said no. They need to get an irrigation meter if they want to separate it from their regular household water use.
60 seconds requests. I had mentioned about a walkway across from Troutman Elementary, and I think I was told that it was too close to another walkway.
Yes.
I'm just so afraid somebody's gonna get hit, because people are still crossing right there, and I almost hit somebody the other day because they darted out. It's scary.
Unfortunately, and I couldn't speak for Andrew, but I'm getting at least 2 requests a month from the public and or people involved with the school system or other nonprofits for the same thing. DOT, for one, has got to allow the approval,
Right.
and they have indicated to Andrew and me, no. There is a crosswalk at the school, but they refuse to use it.
One down by,
Rumpel Street.
yeah, Rumpel Street, right there across from, the Dragonfly, right there.
Yes.
So, yeah, so they're coming from the apartment area and all of those houses down in there, and they're crossing like through the insurance place right there. It is so scary.
I understand completely, but in reality, they're trespassing because they're crossing privately owned property to get to the school.
Yeah, because that lady in insurance, she had a sign up one time, like, quit crossing my cars and everything, quit coming through my parking lot. But I just wanted to mention that.
They also have complained to the town, so many people trespassing on their property. Not just the walkers, but people stopping in their parking lot to let their kids out to then cross Highway 21, yes.
Yeah, I've seen that too, yeah. I just wanted to mention it, it's just, I would just hate for something to happen.
I certainly understand, but again, DOT has said to us, you have a crosswalk. It's just people are
They just need
refusing
to walk
to
down a
use
little
it.
further and use that. Oh. Kim wants to really say something.
Well, one of the things that we have started exploring, to my understanding, all that property that is grass, there are some things that the people that own it at the insurance could use their property for, but in front of Dragonfly and those areas, at least half of the property is theirs. The other part's actually the dentist office or the school system, but it's something that if the greenway Andrew was working on is in the pipeline, and if and when that greenway extension goes, hopefully we can get DOT to relook at something at that time, but at least then there would be a defined walk space, because as several we have questioned, I'm amazed that that development didn't have sidewalks around it to begin with, and it does not. Our modern code does require that there to be sidewalks, that way they could then have a design area to walk from there to the crosswalk that is currently in place. But for whatever reason, the approval of that by a former employee kind of blows our mind. But he's on his third or fourth job since he left here.
We digress.
Mayor, I have one quick thing. The deadline for the Citizen of the Year and Organization of the Year is gonna be the 28th of this month. I've received 2 applications for organization and none for citizen. So if y'all want to be thinking about that.
While she was speaking, I looked at one of the 10 messages that's come in on my phone. Lou said we should have most quotes by the end of this month, just so you all know.
Speaking of Lou, when's his last day? Or has he
2 weeks?
does he have the last day yet?
No, it's in April, but I think it's like 5 weeks. April 6th, I want to say.
6th or 7th, yeah, that's right.
April 4th?
Kim, can you share the orgs of the year?
I'm sorry?
Can you share the organizations of the year?
Do we want to announce that out loud?
No, I'm saying with the council, you don't have to announce that.
Sure.
Thank
I
you.
will.
In terms of what she's saying is, if, we don't get any applications for Citizens of the Year, we still go ahead with the process and just do what we have.
Well, and also just for public information, these are supposed to be something that you all feel great with the nomination. I'm not, it seems like when I say something here last year, I think it is when it met some resistance from some in the public. It's for somebody that is doing something good for the town as a whole. They do not have to be a Troutman town resident. We've had nominations in the past, and council members felt like as a whole that this is not what we're looking for, and/or we need other options to consider. I certainly think everybody interested should nominate somebody if they feel like they're worthy, but I do want to caution, just because a person or two thinks they are worthy does not necessarily mean that's who's going to be appointed to the Citizen of the Year. Each one of you have a vote, and each one of you have kind of different criteria in your mind of what that person, what the role they have filled should look like. So,
Well, I think even while you've been with us, we've had a year or so that we did not, because we just did not have anybody that we felt qualified. I hate to use that word, but I don't know what else to say. In other words, we just simply because somebody nominated a business or a warm body, we felt like we needed to pick somebody just to have somebody that certainly takes away from the importance of the event. I mean, if you're just, because no one else is, so I mean,
to your point, a comment that was used somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 years ago, it's not a popularity contest, it's what have you done for me contest.
Correct. So I mean, that's why I say, even if we have a couple of citizens and we just feel like we need to wait another year, no offense to those two or one that may be, I still feel like we need to go ahead and have it, and we'll do. And again, the businesses, I don't know who 2 businesses are, but again, if we don't think they're matched up to our criteria, then we just do not do it this year. And that's my suggestion.
Again, Any other questions or comments?
What's the easiest way to nominate someone?
The easiest way is to contact the town clerk for the appropriate paperwork. And
By
she-
email or
It's
phone call?
online, it's on the town website.
Town website?
We still have a good many who do not like using the town website, so a phone call to the clerk will get one delivered.
That's right.
Thank you.
Any other comments